Hi everyone, Elizabeth Blackstock here, US editor over at planetf1.com, and I have a Miami Grand Prix Sunday roundup for you after a very wet and wild weekend. This weekend kicked off with news that Max Verstappen would be missing media day because his partner Kelly Piquet was giving birth to their first daughter together, a wonderful baby girl named Lily. Verstappen was back in action on Friday for practice and sprint qualifying. And sprint qualifying gave us a brand new record. Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli, at just 18 years old, is the youngest pole sitter ever in any Formula One format. He took that record from Sebastian Vettel, who was 20 years old when he did it, but unfortunately, Kimi was not able to convert that to a win on Saturday morning. For the first time in Miami's 4-year history, we had wet weather during a Grand Prix weekend, which meant that the sprint race kicked off under slightly damp conditions. Charles Leclerc binned his Ferrari on the recon lap, which made things delayed for about 20 minutes. Then we kicked off just in time for Antonelli to lose out on his front row position to none other than Oscar Piastri. That could have been the story of the race weekend, but the changing weather conditions made it so that we had pit stops during the sprint race. Many drivers swapped from intermediate to slick tires during the race, except for Lando Norris. Norris had cycled out to the front of the field just in time for a safety car to come out. That safety car was the result of a collision between Lawson and Fernando Alonso that sent the Spaniard spinning into the wall. With just a few laps remaining in the race, we never went back green again, which meant that Lando Norris took the checkered flag ahead of the rest of the field. Also of note from the sprint, Max Verstappen was handed a 10-second penalty because he was sent out of his pit right into the path of Kimi Antonelli. This meant that Verstappen finished 17th, very bottom of the field, and is the first time since the 2016 Belgian Grand Prix that he's finished a race outside of the points. But in qualifying, Verstappen reminded us exactly why he's a 4-time world champion by securing pole position ahead of Lando Norris. On Sunday morning, a heavy rainstorm prevented the F1 Academy race from going off, but everything was dried up and cleared up in time for the Grand Prix later in the afternoon. We saw drama heading into the first turn of the race when Lando Norris tried to take advantage of a lockup by Max Verstappen. Norris dove in, tried to take the lead, ran off the track, and ended up falling back to 6th place, which meant that Oscar Piastri gained a position from 4th to 3rd. Stewards took no further action on that dive bomb, deeming it a racing incident on the first lap. But the race also saw a handful of virtual safety cars, the first of which came out for Jack Doohan, who made contact with Lawson at the start of the race. Doohan suffered a puncture that saw him park up on the side of the road, resulting in that virtual safety car. Lawson would go on to retire on lap 36 of 57, having sustained plenty of damage in that accident. But this VSC right at the start meant that when we went green 3 laps later, Piastri was able to make a decisive pass on the Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli to take 2nd place. From there, it was only a matter of time before he chased down Max Verstappen, and after a little bit of a multi-lap scrabble between the two drivers, Piastri was able to pass by, take the lead, and hold it through to the checkered flag. Meanwhile, Piastri's teammate Lando Norris was able to carve his way through the field, even going so far as to mount another multi-lap challenge on Max Verstappen, and it was a battle that Norris ultimately won to finish 2nd in the race. Our next VSC popped out in the middle of a pit stop cycle, which enabled both McLarens as well as the Mercedes of George Russell to come in and pit without losing tons of time. Verstappen had pitted just before, and this meant that the Mercedes of George Russell was able to come back out onto the track in 3rd position, which he held until the end of the race. In a well-earned 5th place was Alex Albon, followed by Kimi Antonelli in 6th, and the Ferrari teammates in 7th and 8th. And boy, did those Ferrari teammates have a hell of a race. The prancing horse provided most of the mid-race entertainment. Both drivers were very evenly matched, which meant that they were right next to each other on the track. Neither was able to catch up to Kimi Antonelli in front, but both drivers really wanted to be in front to get a chance because they were stuck in dirty air behind their teammate. Lewis Hamilton seemed the most frustrated by the whole thing, making quips about his team not displaying very good teamwork, and also asking if they were interested in taking a tea break while they paused to consider strategy to decide whether or not to swap the drivers. Hamilton was pretty jovial at the race, saying that he wasn't upset at the team, even though it may have looked that way for everyone who was watching at home. Rounding out our top 10 was the Williams of Carlos Sainz and Yuki Tsunoda from Red Bull Racing in that last point, despite the fact that he had a 5-second penalty. Our retirements were Liam Lawson, Gabriel Bortoleto, Oliver Bearman, and Jack Doohan, while Isack finished 11th, Esteban Ocon 12th, Pierre 13th, Nico Hulkenberg 14th, and the Aston Martins of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll in 15th and 16th, respectively. That's all from me here at the Miami Grand Prix. We're taking a weekend off before we head over to Imola with the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix when my colleagues over at PlanetF1.com will be taking over. In the meantime, if you want more coverage on all things Formula One, head to our website. We'll see you there.